Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me as always, Jack Fairchild. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris.
Well, better than Joe Biden.
Much better than Joe Biden.
Well, since we were here last, there's been an awful lot of developments that have occurred, and the biggest of which is that Joe Biden has finally stepped down. It turns out that he's not well enough to campaign, but strangely enough, still well enough to be president of the United States, which I find strange. We'll get to that in a second. Of course, the Joe Biden thing, it's not news anymore. No point in beating a dead horse talking about that. It was expected. It was always expected. I don't think for a moment that anybody thought that after that debate performance he could complete the cycle of campaigning necessary to win the White House, and I'm quite confident he certainly cannot compete the cycle necessary to be a competent commander-in-chief. Lord forbid something happen at 9:15 at night, because he's going to be 3 hours in bed by that time. But that's the country we're in, because we're so dadgum dysfunctional. The establishment of the Democratic Party just couldn't let it go. But more importantly, the ultimate establishment insider, Joe Biden, just couldn't let it go. His ego was too big. He had worked too hard so many years. 50 years in Washington just wasn't enough. He was going to tank the party in the process. And wouldn't you know, the donors, Obama, and every other Democrat, it seemed, with a voice, including Pelosi. I thought Pelosi was gone. I mean, she stepped down, but she's still very vocal. Still the godmother, I suppose, of the party. How scary is that?
Isn't it a little hypocritical that she's up there, one of the lead voices, telling Biden to step down when she's pretty ancient and should step down?
Evidently, it's not about age. Certain things she can get away with that Biden could not, and there's been moments when I thought she was slipping, but apparently not quite enough to step down. Of course, she did step down from being the queen bee of the House, and now she's just an instigator, I suppose, and does a good job doing so. But after all of those folks come in that old Washington tradition of completely annihilating the man you propped up for 3.5 years, and then after you annihilate him and end his career, tell everybody how great he was the entire time and how capable he was. It was one of the biggest frauds perpetrated on the American people we've seen in an awfully long time. And Ms. Harris, Vice President Harris, was right in the middle of it, telling us every day that Joe's fine. Nothing to see here. Joe can do the job. Well, clearly Joe couldn't do the job, and he's gone, but more about that later. You know, the Democrats, they gave us now this lady, Harris. Dad, look at me for a second. I know you're busy over there, but hear me out. Name one characteristic of her, just one, where you don't mention the word black or woman, and somehow argue she's a credible candidate.
I can't, because the only other characteristic I can think of when I think of her is giggling.
Well, think about it. Yeah. Completely unqualified, but she checks the boxes, and we'll get to that here in just a second as well. But first, I wanted to go back to a conversation we had a show before last dealing with conspiracy theories. And Jack, you and I have talked about this. Conspiracy theories are always fun. But there are certain underlying personality traits that make some people more prone to believe in conspiracy theories than others. I'm going to make the argument those same traits also make people more prone to trust authoritarian individuals than others. And the Democrats have it in spades. Republicans, some of which, also do. But let's talk about that just for a second. We saw after the assassination attempt on both sides of the political calculation an awful lot of finger pointing, a lot of speculation as to both sides as to what occurred. Now it appears we all know what occurred. Inept Secret Service protection, and at least the director of the organization now has stepped down. All of a sudden, the top-level government conspiracy theories and the fact that it was staged are no longer in mainstream thought now that we've actually focused on the problem that occurred and had somebody eliminated, or not eliminated, removed from her position, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the way it was supposed to work, because that was what reason dictated. But that's not what happened immediately after the shooting. We saw this crazy conspiracy theories pop up on both sides of the equation. And the reason I think it's important is because the same traits that create conspiracy thinkers are the same traits that create followers. Followers create tyrants. And that's one thing that we on this show simply can't follow. Now, I don't fall for a second with the American left telling us that Donald Trump is a tyrant, a would-be dictator.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's not who he is. I mean, it's not Donald Trump that dictates to us every day what we should be eating, what we should be smoking, what kind of mask we should be wearing. The Democrats have shown the propensity over the last 40 years to be true little dictators.
Yeah.
In fact, their philosophy is all about dictating, isn't it?
It is.
When we scream to the Democrats, leave us alone, they say they can't. What do they want? They want our money, right?
Yep.
At least 40% of it every year. They want your children's mind, right?
They do.
They want your approval. More importantly, they want you to give them a high five and to just get out of the way. In other words, they dictate.
They want to control your thoughts.
Well, everything about that party is predicated on force, duress, coercion, the antithesis of a free society. So if there's going to be a dictator, and make no mistake, if it's going to happen, it's going to come up from the left.
Yeah.
It's going to come up
Without
from the
a
left,
doubt.
right? And Harris has shown a propensity not so much to be a dictator, but to be ultra-leftist, which falls into that mindset, okay? Now remember, Joe Biden, he'd been there an awfully long time, but I don't think anybody really feared Joe Biden was a lunatic. He was senile, he was inept, he could not be president because of those traits, and he sometimes appeared to be ultra-liberal because he was trying to hold that faction of his party in base, right?
Yeah.
Here's the problem we've got now. The old guy's gone. The institutional guy is gone. The guy that probably wouldn't have ever overreached or fought for those really radicalized values, he's gone. This new person, she's a true believer, y'all. You know that, right? Harris has told us time and time again that she believes strongly in far-left principles. And when she ran for president back in 2019, she actually raced to the left of Sanders and everyone else in the field and did okay for a short while, but then faltered. So when I talk about these traits, I'm really focusing on the left as much as I am the right. But I want us to be cautious, because if we fall down this same rabbit hole, then we're as guilty as they are if we subvert the Constitution, if we erase the Constitution, if we do things that are not consistent with civil liberties in this society, right? So what we do, look, we're fighting for the survival of a country, but what does that really look like? We can't fight for the survival of a country and do away with the very documents and the very founding that made it great in the first place. There has to be consistency. There has to be balance, right? So conspiracy theories, how do they play a role in this? Well, think about it. Psychologically speaking, people that are more prone to follow conspiracy theories, as a general rule, what do they need? What are they looking for? Understanding, certainty. They're trying to make sense of a world gone mad, right? That's the first thing. Number two, they desire control and security. I'm not suggesting they want to control others. I'm suggesting that the fact that things are spinning out of control makes them really want to find a theory that can explain things, as opposed to just kind of allowing chaos theory to rule the day. It makes them feel better. Also, social identity. If you find a group of folks online that share your opinions about something, it gives you a degree of belonging, doesn't it? It's one of the reasons social media has gotten so powerful, is because when we do searches, and I'm guilty of it too, we search for things that prop up our preconceived biases and ideas. You do it too.
We all do.
You do it too.
Yeah.
You know, we search for data that makes us feel correct. Even at times, well, I mean, you and I are usually correct.
Well, that's accurate.
You and I are usually correct. But what we do, we search for data that tries to verify the correctness of our position. It's human patterns. And patterns are something else that conspiracy theorists fall into, because we all are trained to look at patterns. And if we see a pattern, even if it may not seem reasonable, we'll try to attach a conspiracy to it, to explain it. Mm-hmm. And we've seen this time and time and time again. Here's the problem. The same fear that causes us to think about conspiracies and to concoct conspiracies from both the left and the right, it's the same fear that creates this growing need for authoritarian impulses. You say, what are you talking about, McDaniel? You lost your mind today. Maybe I have, but this polling is pretty alarming. There's a new poll out, and it shows that a big chunk of the public in this country and worldwide wants an authoritarian leader. Now, conservatism rejects that. Or does it? Let's think about it. If a big-time fellow that shared your belief systems, I'm not talking about Trump. Trump isn't like this. I'm talking about the next guy. Say the next guy comes around and he shares your belief systems. Would you give him a break if he broke the Constitution? Would you turn a blind eye if he broke the law? Would you ignore him so long as you were getting your way? That's how tyrants are created. And that's what I fear with the Democrats at this stage in our history. For all of their talk about the right being authoritarian, and for all their talk about the right being dictative, that's psychological projection, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
They sense it among themselves, and that's when they judge us so harshly. All we want to do is be left alone. But here's the alarming data I just found. Pew Research Center, 32% of Americans right now believe a military regime should rule the day in Washington.
Wow. No, I mean, do they understand what they're supporting there?
I don't know. Another poll, this one, PRRI, a study from last October, found that 38% of Americans thinks the country needs a leader who will break some rules if that's what it takes to set things right. 56% back in 2022 said that Washington is broken. That's accurate.
Yeah.
But they took it further. And for America to remain a world power, we need a strong president who will use their power to make change and get things done. Full stop. Right there. The greatest problem to your liberty, the greatest threat to your liberty, and I'm channeling my Thomas Jefferson right now, is a strong executive. What are we doing? Are we so afraid? Is that fear taking over again that we're willing to trade off our God-given liberties for any strong executive that can give us our way? Now, I don't think most Republicans want to go down this path. I think a bunch of Democrats would.
I do too.
I think a bunch of Democrats would, and that's why it concerns me so greatly, because remember, we're staggering into the darkness here, trying to find control and security, and it's not there anywhere. And it's getting worse by the day because the demographics are changing, society is changing. And do you know why that is? This is something no one wants to talk about. You want to know why we can't come together, why we can't have unity and peace in our time? It's because for 50 years, Democrats have driven a wedge. Identity politics. Women belong here, they're powerful, and nothing else matters. So-and-so belong here, he's powerful, and nothing else matters. And they create these groups, and they use wedge issues to divide us. And then they wonder why it is we're so divided. Well, think about this. Countries need unity, don't we?
Yep.
Don't we, to stay together?
I think so,
To stay viable? What are the things over the last 200 years that have unified the United States of America? Language. What have the Democrats done about that with this influx of illegal immigration?
Oh, nothing.
Okay.
They're not going to adopt English as an official language.
Language unifies us, right? Number two, religion unifies us. What have the Democrats done with religion in the public sphere?
Completely tried to erase it, get it out, ridicule it, make people feel stupid for believing.
What else unifies us, right? Let's think through it. A belief in our institutions. And what have they told us for the last 20 or 30 years? Systemically racist, systemically problematic. They have eroded everything that tends to unite populations. And then they're wondering now why we just can't get together and sing Kumbaya. You spent the last 50 years driving wedges, the last 50 years creating victim classes, the last 50 years tearing down American greatness and individualism. You don't even like the country. You even say that. But now we're supposed to unite. That's, again, the thing that scares me. Fear drives authoritarian thought. Fear drives authoritarian opportunity. And the further we are apart, which we're growing further apart every single day, the more fear and uncertainty is going to increase among the population. We're setting ourselves up for a loss of civil liberties. We're setting ourselves up for subverting the Constitution. It's just a matter of time. Am I wrong about this?
No, I think you're frighteningly right, and I wish you were wrong. I think a lot of people wish you were wrong, but we have seen how easy it is for people to be led, and because there is this desire to have an individual to believe in, not an idea any longer. You know, the idea, and that's something that I remember going back to your days on campaign trails. Something that you've always preached is that the message, the idea of conservatism is more important than the messenger. And again, not talking about conservatives here, but I'm just utilizing that as an example. But I think there are so many people now that have gotten away from that. And that's the reason why you saw the left gravitate and try to hold on to Joe Biden despite all of his flaws. And that's why now that they've pushed him out the door, they have rallied behind Harris.
Fear causes people to react irrationally, and that's what we're seeing, whether it's conspiracy-minded thinking or whether it's propping up an old man that has no business being president.
Yep.
Right? And so if both sides are somewhat guilty of this, but one side is extremely dangerous about this, which the Democrats, I think, are, it creates a dynamic in my mind and future problems for our society. But again, what do I know? I know this. Worldwide, it's been consistent. Soviet Union fell, and there were people in Eastern Europe begging for the days of the communists to come back. Did you know that?
I do.
They felt like the trains.
Yes.
The trains were on time more often then. You know, I could clearly count on my pension more often then. Right? They were dying for authoritarian government. When Saddam Hussein was overthrown, same thing happened there. You ask a couple of guys on the street, most of them wanted him gone, but there's a handful. I just loved living under that type of authority because there were consistent, I guess, rules that were predictable. Right?
Yep.
Not me.
Not me.
Not
either.
me. I prefer chaos to that type of security. If you were to
I
ask
barely
me.
like listening to the rules at my job. So, I mean, how could I live under a government like that?
Well, here's the thing. I only say all this because if we're not careful, we slip into this mindset. Democrats do regain control somehow. Lord help us if that happens. And now, how do we combat it? Right? So how do you think about this? Because the great obstacle to her, Miss Harris, would be the Constitution, would it not?
It should be, yes.
It should be. And that's what we're hoping happens. Because I'm going to tell you something. This lady, with all due respect, she's a heck of a dancer out here.
I've seen videos.
With all due respect, she is the most radical nominee the Democrats have ever put up. And that says a lot.
And isn't she one of the first to have no primary votes ever?
Well, let's think through this for a minute because she really is a bad candidate. I said tongue-in-cheek earlier that if you don't mention the word black and don't mention the word woman, what does she have? Not much.
Yeah.
She has a good smile.
She does.
I don't understand when she speaks. It seems circular and it's just a bunch of words.
She sounds like a Sesame Street character.
She does. She gets very nervous and laughs a lot. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are not characteristics I think that are going to greatly impress any world leader.
Not at all.
Much less bring stability to this country, and that does concern me. We have a roadmap with her here. We've seen this before when she ran a few years ago. Remember, for president, she started off doing okay, and then she collapsed, and then she climbed back in, and then she collapsed again. And it turned out the more people saw her, the more they disliked her.
Yep.
It's one of those weird candidates. She has all the outward appearances of being a charismatic candidate, but the more she talks, the more you scratch your head and you think, what did she just say?
Yeah.
It was just the opposite with Barack Obama. I didn't agree with a word he said, but when he said it, at least it was beautiful.
Yeah, he said it well.
It wasn't, he didn't mean it half the time. and when he said it, it was circular in reasoning, and he was just trying to inspire with platitudes because we knew he was a dangerous president, but at least he said it well. She seems to lack any of those traits. And yet, I think she's dangerous. I think she's an incredibly dangerous candidate.
I agree.
I think, you think about what they've tried to do here. They we're going to take this younger lady, and we're going to try to take her, the attacks on her, and make them almost impossible to levy without accusations of racism or gender or
racism or sexism.
And they've now removed the age card from the equation. They spent all this time attacking Biden, and now she's much younger than Trump, so she can turn those tables just a bit. Former prosecutor.
Yep.
I can hear it now.
I've already seen the first speech.
I haven't seen it, but I can hear it now. It's going to be pro-law. First of all, the Democrats haven't been pro-law since 1968. No. Let's not kid ourselves. Pro-law. But that's the angle they're going to try to push here, even though they're lawless at the border. She was lawless as Attorney General of California, and she's lawless now. But they're going to say she's a prosecutor, and that's going to be the mask that she wears.
Yeah, they've already started it. You'll have to go look up the speech.
So it's going to be law and order and structure, isn't it? And that's how she moves to the right for some of those moderates to make them feel more comfortable when they do find out she really is very radicalized. And that's the Republicans. That's what they have to do. They have to do it, I guess, in a way that doesn't offend everybody's sensibilities. Because every attack we make on her is going to be seen as racist or sexist.
Because the media already has their marching orders. The media is not unbiased. We know this. We've talked about that 1,000 times. But they already know what they're going to do. Anytime that somebody levies any type of attack against her, that's exactly the card they're going to go to. It's going to be the racism card and the sexism card. And sadly, Chris, and you may disagree with me, I just don't have enough faith in the American electorate to believe that they won't fall for it again.
Well, no, look, I think you're onto something right there, and that's the thing that concerns me the most. Being a person that's been involved in elections, and you have as well, you begin to recognize there's a large number of people out there that simply aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
They're just not. We believe they are, and we think they're like-minded, and we think they're getting their news and they're paying really close attention to the world's business, but they're not. And that seems to be more percentage-wise of younger people than it is much older people. Mm-hmm. The demographics are changing dramatically. Older people are getting older, they're passing away. Younger people coming from these universities and colleges that don't share any of our values or beliefs are rising and now becoming voters. Harris provides them, what? An attractive candidate who checks the boxes, who is more of a celebrity than a thinker, right? More of an actor than a doer. She fits the perfect profile for younger voters to kind of gravitate toward if she can control her mouth. Now, here's the question. She's going to get a bump right now. We know the bump's coming because she was just announced, and that's just the way bumps work. She's going to have a little bit of a bump in the polling, and one poll showed her slightly ahead of President Trump. I don't know that I believe that for a second. I think the mainstream media apparatus has propped this lady up unlike anybody else in history over the last 3 or 4 days. Billions of dollars in free advertisement. Now, they're propping her up. She's got a slight lead, it appears. I don't think that's the case, but let's just assume that it is. As we approach the convention in Chicago,
another bump.
The big question for us is, and I don't think it's happened, but we have to pray it has not, there's a 3-week period where the Republicans had victory after victory after victory. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that?
I did.
It was unprecedented in American politics. It seemed that everything broke our way for 3.5 weeks.
We were about to have a Reagan-Mondale type election. They had already booked all the victory hotel suites.
Okay, well, let's stop right there, because in politics, what you want to do, if possible, is to peak at the right moment.
Yeah.
Have we peaked too early?
I think with the news of Biden dropping out, absolutely. I think we peaked too early. I do.
So we're going to have to work really hard, knock on a whole bunch of doors, make a whole bunch of phone calls, and pray she puts her foot in her mouth, which I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And when that does, you'll see a further change in the polling after the Democrat convention. I can only assume at the convention she's going to give a fiery speech protecting women's rights on the issue of abortion. I can only assume she's going to talk about her bona fides as a prosecutor.
Yep.
And I can assume she's going to have a vice president that was a former fighter pilot and an astronaut. We'll get to that in a second. It might be time for our ads real quick, Jay.
All right, Chris. Well, real quick, let's get into the ads. This year comes with a lot of uncertainties. Will red-hot inflation continue? Will interest rates continue to soar? How can the Fed promise a soft landing when all signs point to another serious recession? If the beginning of the year has shown us one thing, inflation is not slowing down, and the Fed is completely incapable of fixing these issues. Like millions of other Americans, I've found myself asking, how am I going to protect myself and my family? That's why we at the Midnight Ride Network spoke to the folks at Genesis Gold Group, our new platform partner for the Midnight Ride. They walked me through how I can protect my savings with real physical gold and silver. Genesis makes it easy to convert your 401k or your IRA into a retirement account backed by precious metals like gold and silver. Genesis Gold Group has decades of experience helping folks just like you preserve your hard-earned savings, and the service provided to their clients is truly one of a kind. Call Genesis Gold today at 800-200-GOLD for a no-commitment informative consultation with one of their experts to find out if Genesis can be a fit for you. That's 800-200-4653 or visit them at midnightridegold.com. And when it comes to protecting you and your family's future, I'm excited to share with you another one of the Midnight Ride's new sponsors, Prepper Beef. Prepper Beef offers a range of freeze-dried beef in freezer boxes with steaks and roast made from high-quality, all-American cattle. These products are made to last for up to 20 years, ensuring you have access to premium beef for decades to come. By supporting Prepper Beef, you're not just buying beef, you're supporting American ranchers, values, and your family. Join us in our mission to eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Visit midnightridebeef.com and stock up for your future today.
All right, outstanding. Yeah, going back to this Biden thing and this Harris thing, you got to hit her pretty hard. And because she is an extremist, she's far to the left of Biden. He was an old institutional guy, and she's more of a radical from California. And that's got to be the playbook, right? You talk about, first of all, her complicity in protecting Biden down the stretch. Mm-hmm. What kind of judgment was that? The guy's senile and she's protecting him.
Yeah,
that shows a lack of judgment. We also know that she has been responsible, in large part, she was the border czar, or whatever they called her. And so she's responsible for some of those failed policies, right, including inflation, which is driven in large part by federal spending. We'll get to that again later. But also the fact that she's got this long record of running for office. And as part of that record, she's had a couple of, let's just be honest about it. What she did, Jack, she tried to move to the left quickly to make sure nobody could get to her left and outflank her. She was running with Bernie Sanders on the ticket, right?
Yep.
So she tried to move to the left of that lunatic.
Wow.
But do you know her voting record in D.C. during that time period showed her to be a slightly more liberal senator than even Bernie Sanders?
I have seen that.
You've seen that? Mm-hmm. Now, if that doesn't raise alarm bells, nothing is going to raise alarm bells. Now, granted, she probably missed a whole bunch of votes because she was busy doing everything, but being a senator at the time. But it showed her to be considerably, or at least slightly more liberal than even Bernie Sanders. So to the left of Biden, to the left of Sanders, you have to begin to attack that. And she has a record here. Have you seen some of this stuff about ICE? She seemed to imply that immigration control should be disbanded at one point.
I remember that, yes.
And basically she wanted to start over with immigration control. What does that look like under Harris's regime?
Nightmarish.
I think so. She wants to decriminalize illegal immigration. Now let me ask you something, serious question, all of you out there. If you decriminalize something, do you get more of it or less of it?
You get more of it.
Okay. Do you not think for a second that even the discussion of decriminalization, even the discussion in Congress of decriminalization, is not going to turn that border on like crazy down there?
We've already seen examples of it doing just that when they floated the idea of amnesty.
Every time you float amnesty, every time you float a possibility of decriminalization, you're going to have more border crossers, and it's already inundated. It's already out of control. But making matters worse for her, she thinks that we owe them health care. Medicare for all, she claimed, even for illegal immigrants.
Yeah, that's going to help the spending problem we have.
Well, we're getting to that because if she's going to take that position, she has to begin to pay for it. And when you think about the massive amount of money that would require, it is going to break the bank. She wants to eliminate private health plans. Did you know that?
I think I had seen that.
There are 177 million Americans that are currently on private health plans, and she wants to roll all those into Medicare for all. That's a clever moniker. It really is. They're really saying, what they're really saying is universal health care.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But they know that the word Medicare is seen as, a deity among a lot of elderly people, including my mom. I get that. But they say for all, and they say, how bad could it be? Well, it's going to break the dadgum bank. We're talking about at least $3 trillion annually to implement that change. That almost matches, a little less, what the federal spending is right now in these unprecedented times. Now, if she goes that route, which I don't think she'll get it passed, but if she did go that route and get it passed, what do you think happens to inflation? It drives up even faster. The woman has no idea of how to govern. She has no idea of what economics really are or how policy can change a country's trajectory almost overnight. Environmentalism. She is a big-time environmentalist. What does that look like? Well, she's going to try. This is another issue. All you Republicans out there, you hear me out, because you really had a chance a few years ago to end that Senate filibuster. Dadgum, it couldn't get anything passed. And what was the excuse? Well, we don't have 60 votes. Well, you knew that when you ran, and you promised us all this stuff anyway, but that was the excuse, right? Got to have 60 votes, because if you don't have 60, you can't invoke closure, the filibusters pop, and you can't get anything passed.
Yeah.
Harris is saying she's going to reverse that rule.
Of course she is.
I told you she was. We had our chance to fix things, and what did we say? Well, if we do it, they'll do it. She's going to do it.
Yep.
Okay, so if you begin to wonder how she's going to pass some of these new ideas and new plans, she's going to basically defeat the filibuster with a change in the interworkings of the Senate rules. And what that means is 51 votes passes a bill as opposed to 60. If she gets that, she may very well get her environmental bills through. They claim if she does that, the economic control that will enact, $50 to $93 trillion in new spending over the next decade.
Oh, wow.
She's just getting started. So we're not talking about just healthcare, we're talking about all the cost of environmentalism as well, which basically is more about control than it is about the environment. We all know
100%,
that.
yes.
AOC basically has admitted that a couple of times. Also, fracking, which fracking is an important way we do gather natural resources.
It is.
She's going to try to ban fracking. What do you suppose that's going to do to the price of gasoline?
Oh, my goodness. I'm not going to be able to drive anymore.
What about the cost of groceries, because they're driven by trucks, right? What happens if you raise the price of gasoline? Everything goes up. I'm telling you, these Democrats have no idea about how economies work. It's all talking points and identity politics. It's all they've got to offer. And if she gives us that, it may be enough. But we have to point these things out every single day, and hopefully those moderates recognize it and they stay on the right.
That's what you hope. And again, let's not forget, too, when you're talking about Kamala Harris here, this is a woman that, what was it, just 2 years ago? The Democrats were trying to figure out how to get her off of the ticket together. It wasn't Biden they were trying to run off this ticket. It was her. And now she's their golden goose. She's the chosen one. She's the one that they think is going to move them forward. It's crazy, because you can just see right here that, again, we talk about tribalism a lot on the show. You can see the tribalism right here, because she is an unpopular vice president, yet they're running to her because they think she's their only hope.
I'm with you. So what's the answer? I mean, you know, she's got to do something, because I think her record could very well tank her.
Yeah.
So now she's got to begin this pivot toward the center. And one way she can pivot toward the center, and this is dangerous, because, I mean, this guy checks some boxes as well. Senator Mark Kelly. Senator Mark Kelly is from Arizona. Arizona was a tough state last time, remember?
It was.
He also, more importantly, was a fighter pilot and an astronaut.
Yep.
It's a pretty impressive resume.
It is.
It ranks right up there with Larry Bird.
It's impressive. I don't know if it's Larry Bird impressive.
Here's the thing. Whether fortunately or unfortunately, because, you know, you and I value the military greatly.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are great. These women are great. My grandfather served. I know you had family members serve,
Yes.
and we've always held it in really high esteem. Sometimes, though, the problem is we hold them in such high esteem that anybody who runs for office that happens to have been a part of the military, we automatically gravitate toward. And I sometimes have to remind people that John Kerry was in the military.
Yep.
Okay? Just because you served don't mean you're going to be a good senator.
No.
Just because you served doesn't mean you're going to be a good president, John Kerry. Right?
You've got to have some type of common sense.
Well, but the thing is, astronaut, fighter pilot,
Yep.
this is going to be her pick. Mark it down. Mark it down. He checks the boxes for the moderates. He checks the boxes for some Republicans. Now, they get him out there and he starts touting military service. And they got her up there talking about her new and improved fight against crime. He checks that box as well, by the way. Did you know that?
Yep.
So my concern is now she does gravitate over to find a guy like this, and now they get this whole secondary news cycle. You can already see it now. The mainstream press is going to gush over Mark Kelly. Now, the radicals in the party, they won't like him.
No.
But they hate Trump so much they'll stay at home.
Oh, they're going to fall in line.
Right? But you can already see it now. This is going to be the greatest ticket in the history of mankind with the first black woman president. And it just so happens this brave fighter pilot who's fought combat missions and when he got bored went to space for a change. That's a dangerous ticket.
It is.
And we better be prepared.
Well, I talked about this last week before Biden dropped out when I was doing my Right Side radio show, and one of the things that I cautioned the Republicans at that time, because again, everybody was riding high with the convention. Everybody was so excited with the Republican National Convention. My point then was, you're reeking of overconfidence. And something can happen, something can change, and next thing you know, all this confidence goes away. Guess what? Something happened, something changed, and now they're going to have to re-strategize. And you hope that the fact that everybody could see that we were headed down the path that Biden was going to get out of the race, that they have done a ton of opposition research on everybody that might be involved, who could have been the nominee, who could be the VP pick.
Yeah.
They better have been working.
First things first, there were better presidential selections for the Democrats than Harris.
Absolutely.
But there's no way this party that's obsessed with identity politics was going to do anything whatsoever to not nominate her because she is a black woman. I know that sounds horrible. Don't kid yourselves. She was selected by Joe Biden because she was a black woman, not because of her qualifications or experience. She checked boxes. It's a party of checking boxes, and that's what she brings to the table. Now, granted, at least one U.S. senator has claimed that she was a DEI candidate.
I saw that.
Now, maybe that was poor choice of words for the timing. I think he's probably accurate.
Yeah.
I think he's probably accurate.
I agree.
There are other candidates that would have been better, but they could not do it. Now, one more thing, speaking of conspiracy theories, now I'm going to share one. Because I do believe in this conspiracy theory.
I want to hear this.
You're telling me that Biden was completely undecided about stepping down until that final social media post he made, and yet she still managed to coalesce darn near every delegate, darn near every senator, and darn near every congressman in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Calls were being made that whole time. Don't fall for that Democrat nonsense. They were on the phone. They knew that guy was stepping down 3 or 4 days ahead of time, and they were working those phones the whole time.
The rumor came out, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday night, that he was going to drop out on Sunday.
And they denied it?
Yeah.
Wait, they denied it?
Yeah, they did.
So they lied.
Yeah, they 100%
Imagine that, politicians lying. So we know it's happening. They lie.
They're still lying.
Working the phones like crazy. I tell you something that was fascinating. There was no dissension. You talk about a party that's completely authoritarian in its impulses. That's authoritarianism. There was no dissension. They fell right in the line like the little followers they are. And that's the point that scares me the most about those people. We saw it with Obama when he was elected, when people were passing out in the stands because they were so blown away by his charisma. And I said to myself, Lord help us, what's going on here? Call me crazy. I have a natural skepticism of all presidents.
I think that's fair.
Not because of who they are, but because of the office they hold.
The power that it gives them.
The power that it gives them. So did Jefferson. So did Hamilton. So did Washington. It seems like now, though, with the Democrats, they fall right in the line. That's authoritarianism. That's power. Because did you see anybody even so much as step out and say, I might have some interest in that position? Anybody?
No.
Newsom?
Newsom was one of the first to endorse it.
Exactly. That's power.
And there's a lot being made because unless it's happened today, Barack Obama had still not endorsed her. But I think they're saving that for the convention. I think that's all strategized. I don't think there's anything to why he hasn't.
If he hasn't endorsed, it's because he's negotiating.
Yep.
You got to give him credit for credit's due. He is, in many respects, a kingmaker for that party. Don't think he's not negotiating right now.
Yep.
Future book deals, future office positions, future Congress people he would like to see anointed in these positions, future senators, maybe even something for his wife. The biggest concern I had, the secondary conspiracy theory I had for a moment, was that Michelle Obama would be the
Oh,
vice
I
president.
was frightened of that because
And
that
if
would have
that's-
been formidable.
That would have been devastating.
Yeah.
And for many, many reasons. Or somebody even floated the theory that Mitt Romney was going to be the VP for her.
That could still happen.
I thought that's very plausible. That's incredibly plausible because they have so much politically in common, right?
You said Romney, so I guess I have to.
Are you
put
going
it
to do
on.
that?
I think I have to. If you mention Romney, I think the rhino mask has to come out.
Well, do it, Jack. Take your time, though. This is live radio. Nobody. There you go.
So there you have it.
Please,
Mitt
please,
Romney in
please.
the house with you.
Please get a still of that. No, but Mitt Romney would be I don't think he would accept, because you talk about the ultimate stab in the back of the Republican Party. That maybe Liz Cheney's looking for a job for all we know.
Oh, you know she is.
The problem that there is she's even more unlikable than Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Now Hillary would have loved to have it. Don't think for a second.
Oh, Hillary was trying to
Don't
get
think for a second that Bill and Hillary weren't working those phones, except that they know that Hillary is, okay, good compare contrast. Hillary Clinton is, I don't like her one bit. I don't believe in her politics one bit. She's smart. She's smart.
Yep, I agree.
She's conniving.
Very much
Right?
so.
She can give a good speech when she needs to, right? But there was something about her that just rubbed us all the wrong way. Harris is the polar opposite of that.
Yeah.
She's not smart.
Nope.
But she doesn't rub us the wrong way. We just kind of look at her and laugh about it because it seems almost comical. And to me, that strangely enough, it makes her somewhat of a dangerous candidate.
I 100% agree. Because,
Nobody
again,
agrees.
the lack of polish, but if she's trainable, which I think is what the Democrats are banking on, is that she's going to be trainable. They can coach her up and they can make her look better than she actually is. And she's got a better look than Hillary. So here you go.
Well, I will tell you this. If there was ever a moment in this country's history that was going to define a race, particularly for her, it's going to be when she accepts that nomination at the DNC.
Yeah.
If she's able to find a way to give a speech, to thread the needle to where she's able to appeal to the activists in her party and yet seem presidential, look out. Got our hands full. So all hands on deck. Trump needs to win this race.
Is it not, though, Chris, a little hypocritical? Again, the Democrats, I think they thrive in hypocrisy anyway. But when you look at the fact that the Democrats, this whole time, what have we heard about them and their attacks on Donald Trump is that they're trying to defend democracy. We're trying to save democracy. Yet here they are about to run a candidate in the least democratic way possible. I mean, do you not find that amusing when you look at it and you see just how hypocritical they are?
Well, the Democrats have never been about democracy. They're about power and about control. I remember there was a 60-year period where the Supreme Court of the United States was making laws. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's democratic about that approach. You don't elect those justices. They're appointed. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a democratic bone in that approach at all. And in fact, it was counter-majoritarian. Yet they were making laws from Roe versus Wade on up. And the Democrats applauded that. Mm-hmm. No, this party's not about democracy. It's a catchword they use.
Yeah.
It's a catchword. First of all, not to beat a dead horse, but this isn't a democracy.
Republic.
You won't even find that word in our founding documents. It doesn't exist. The reason it doesn't exist is because nobody at the time trusted democracies. They saw it as a form of government that was inherently dangerous to liberty and freedom and would basically decay and break to pieces. And that's pretty much what's happened every place it's been tried. We're a republic. And what that means in short is this. There are barriers to what the majority can accomplish. And I know that sounds crazy, right? We're supposed to do what the majority says. Not really. The majority can't take away your house by vote.
No.
They can't steal your pocketbook by vote. They can't take away your children by vote. You have rights and privileges. They can't silence you because of their vote. They can't tell you who you can worship because of their vote. Nobody wants to live in a democracy because democracy is the biggest threat to liberty in the world. Democrats know that, but they've polled the word, they've code-tested it, and they know people love to hear it. This isn't a democracy. It's a republic. And there are certain things that all the people in the world, no matter what they vote for, can't change. I'm thankful for that Constitution. I'm thankful for those barriers that are there to protect my rights. I don't want to see those eroded. And the Democrats have shown a propensity over the last 100 years to keep eroding those barriers. I don't trust any of them. The key for us is this: restore the barriers, not to continue to erode them. Going full circle now to where we started. Fear, anger, I feel like we're losing control and certainty. We can't become like them. Our job is to hold the line and allow the institutions and allow the Constitution to prevail over time, to work over time. It's not to stick it in a drawer for 3 weeks while somebody does something crazy. It's to save it. We're an idea. We're not just a government, we're an idea. The idea is we're supposed to be people that value individual liberty and dignity for every person. We're supposed to be those people that will fight for liberty wherever we can to preserve it. You don't do that by being afraid. You do it by being resolved. We're resolved. We're not afraid. And I never want to see a lack of reason and a lack of rationale get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish here. And that is, we want to drain that swamp. We want to reset it, make it better, but with the same protections and the same institutions and the same bulwarks to protect our rights that we always had in the first place.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking for. And if you sum it all up, it's really simple, lefties. Just leave us alone. I say that almost every show, but it's the summary of everything that we believe as conservatives. We want you to leave us alone. Let us raise our families. Let us keep our paychecks. Let us worship our God. You may not agree with any of that. We're just asking you, as a matter of peace, just to leave us alone.
It's not hard.
They can't
No.
do it. They're busybodies. They think they know better.
They think they're smarter than us.
They want to govern. I had a politician tell me one time, again, using no names whatsoever, but it was someone on the Democratic side of the aisle. A person I do respect. I disagree, but I respect. And my position was allow people to self-govern. Always fight for that.
Yeah.
Because God knows nobody seems to think that's important anymore, just to leave people alone, let them govern their lives as they see fit. He stopped me and he goes, you don't understand. People need guardian angels. He saw himself as some sort of enlightened protector of mankind.
That's the problem.
That's the most dangerous man in the world.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous man in the world. We don't want to be protected by a man. We want to be left alone and to govern our lives accordingly and to live with the consequences of our decisions. That's all we're asking. But that's the way they see it. They won't say it in polite circles. They won't say it at the dinner table around other conservatives. At the end of the day, they think they're smarter. They think they're better. They think they can make better decisions for you than you can.
What's sad is there are people, and we talked about this at the start of the show, there are people that believe that. How many times, Chris, do you hear somebody when they're talking about one of these politicians, instead of referring to them as our elected representative, they refer to them as our leaders? I have never elected a leader in my life. I've elected somebody to represent me, but I've never chosenly elected a leader.
Do you know, and this is something we don't teach in civics classes anymore,
No.
what's the point of government? Nobody wants to answer that question. What's the point of government? Why does government exist in the first place? Now, if you ask somebody overseas, they'll tell you it's to protect power and wealth, to monopolize land or gold, whatever the case may be, the monarchs of Europe. That's why their governments existed. They used the peasants to get rich, right?
Yep.
And they fought wars to maintain their superiority, their domination over the peasants. That's not what America's for. America's government exists, this is going to shock you, just to protect your God-given rights. Nobody talks about those things anymore. It simply exists to protect your God-given rights, to make sure that no strong man can take them from you. It exists for that reason. It exists to protect property. It exists to secure contracts. And outside of that, anything but those three things, it can get incredibly dangerous in a hurry. Because now you're not simply trying to protect people's liberty and securing them, you're trying to control them. And control is antithetical to the American experiment. But if you ask a Democrat, ultimately, remember, always know this, their party is all about power, coercion, and control. Always will be. And our party should be about decentralizing that power and taking it away from those politicians that want to use it. I'll just say it one more time so we can be clear for everybody. Leave us alone. And when we say government to leave us alone, what we really are saying is politicians to leave us alone. Do you trust politicians, Joe?
Not even remotely.
I mean, should you? They've
No.
lied our whole lives. They've spent money doing it, our money doing it. They've gotten the perks and the protections, and they've created two sets of laws, one for them and one for us. And every time you allow government to dictate to you, you're allowing that knucklehead to dictate to you. That's all it is. Government is an extension of a politician's will. All we're saying is get the politicians out of our lives. Create a space where they can't control us. That's all we're asking. They can't do it, and that's why we're having so much tension. And that's one of the reasons I think that unity in this country is going to be so difficult to find. Now, a couple of more things we could talk about, but I think that's a good place to end unless you have a very sensational story you want to share.
You know, I don't have anything sensational, but I mean, the way that this news keeps happening, something crazy is going to happen before we do another episode. You know that.
Man, every day, I talk to my staff at work, and everybody just walks in shaking their head. It's almost hard to believe what the next news cycle is going to bring.
Yeah.
And I see why people are scared. And I see why they're uncertain, but now's the time to tether ourselves to the things that are eternal.
Yes,
tether our things to the things that are eternal, things that have always mattered, and stick to those things. And if you do that and quit chasing all the shiny objects, you'll find peace again, and we'll find prosperity again. But we have to find ways to do that and not get caught up in all this drama.
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, we need to go back to the roots. We need to go back to the basics. Go back to our faith. Go back to the Constitution. Go back to the foundations of this nation. Right. They worked for 200 years. Why are we trying to move away from that now? Why are we trying to? And I can tell you why. It's because the left doesn't like that, because as you've pointed out throughout this show, they want to control us. That is their whole ideal. They don't like us, despite all this unity talk that they're now throwing out. Notice how quickly they went right back on the attack just mere days after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. They went right back to their roots. Yeah. And that's because they're scared if we ever go back to our foundations, they can never win again.
Yeah, fair enough. Because those foundations are designed specifically to protect us from strong men. They're designed specifically to protect us from people who think they know everything.
Yep.
They're designed specifically to keep the busybodies at home and not in offices of authority over the people. That's all we're asking. It's not complicated. Look, right or left, this is the home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. Some of the things we say may be a bit objectionable. That's the point. We're going to fight for our belief system to the very end, and that belief system is our Constitution, and that's our founding, and it's the very things that make this country great, and that is the ability to be free without political interference.
Amen.
That's the Midnight Ride. That's Chris McDaniel's America. Jack, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back.
I appreciate
the My
that.
Pillow
That was
guy.
good.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit mypillow.com.